Check. Good. So I'm Max Ceron. Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and as always, I'm going coast to coast to coast. Find the stories out there in Canada and around the world for you, my faithful listeners. Today we have Connor McWilliams coming to us from Vancouver, which I would say sometimes is sunny, but most of the time is not. Connor, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Max. Thanks for having me on here.
You bet, buddy. So you told me you're in Vancouver. That's a big area and lots of little pieces out there. So where in Vancouver are you?
Yeah, so I'm actually just based out of Steveston. It's a little fishing village about 30 minutes south of Vancouver there. And it's a nice little neighborhood. I mean, the homes are pretty expensive. You know, you're looking at about $2.5 million a piece. But if you're okay with that, then it's a nice place to live in for sure.
Steveston's beautiful. The harbor's nice. They bring out the tall ships every year there at the port. My family lived in Richmond, which is right next door, for almost 20 years. So, you know, I believe all Steveston technically is underwater right now. And if there's an earthquake, those $2 million houses don't float very well. But it's real pretty. It's real pretty.
It is really nice. Yeah, I'm dead basically if there's an earthquake. So if you lose me halfway through this.
Awesome. So Connor, where were you born? Is that where you've always called home? Is that kind of the south side of Van, or?
Yeah, exactly. So I was born and raised in Richmond and grew up in Steveston, you know, grew up in low-income housing. So as you can imagine, it was a bit tough for us growing up. But, you know, for myself, I think that's really what got me into the welding industry, right? Was growing up in that environment.
So, you know, in low-income housing, you know, depending on what the situations were, I lived in low-income housing for a bit, and it's like, you know, my dad was a tradesperson. It was always like an in-between place, but sometimes there's people that are there for life, and I mean, it is what it is. For yourself, you know, what was your, I guess, what created that ambition for you as a kid to perhaps pursue a trade or get out of that environment?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I spent 14 years from 5 years old to 19 in low-income housing. And for myself, I grew up playing a really high level of hockey. So, you know, was training with some WHL teams. Used to train with actually captain of Team Canada with Brent Seabrook for a little while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 16, my grandfather unfortunately passed, but he left me behind a chunk of money. It's about $8,000. And I had the opportunity to spend that money to join a hockey team for a year or to buy a Mustang. And as you can imagine, with any 16-year-old, just went to the Mustang route, and you know that's what led me down. You know, going into trades, I just started working on the car, and you know got a new exhaust for it, and I was like, man, this is really cool stuff, and you know that's what inspired me to get going working with my hands.
So did you have any trades background in your family? Any uncles, aunts, parents? Was there anybody that was like, hey, this is a good avenue for you? Or and if not, how did you find the trades?
That's a good question. Yeah. So for myself, I didn't have that. I had quite the opposite actually. So I had my parents who were encouraging me to stick with hockey and to go pro and, you know, at least play pro in Europe or something of that sort. But, you know, I ultimately didn't want to do it. Like, I'm sure it's a lot of kids' dreams, but it just wasn't mine. So I really liked once I got my Mustang in the car and just fooling around with it. And, you know, I was fortunate enough that in some high schools, they offer apprenticeship programs where you can finish, you know, a bit early. So I went in the automotive route and got my automotive level 1 service technician ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working over at Chevrolet there. And it was a great gig. And I managed to land an apprenticeship through them, which was nice because they would pay for all the schooling. But I remember just being at work and, trying out welding just on some of the cars. And I was like, man, this is awesome. Like, I love doing this. And, if I could get any sort of role that involved, like, just even operating a torch, like, I was like, hey, and just an acetylene torch, like, if I can just use that to bend some metal on a car, like, pass it over. And that's where I started, looked into some programs and, yeah, signed up for school and then went through school at about 18 for my level 1 for welding. Just got out of auto.
So then you're still living in Steveston at this point because following your timeline, you were there till you were 19. So you're working at Chevy, owning a Ford, which is fine. I own a Ford and a Chevy, and my Ford is a Mustang. So I've had 3 Mustangs now. This is my 3rd one, but
There you go.
you do the mechanic, you do the auto body technician. Did you not feel like that was your home? Or did you just think that the welding portion of it was the coolest part of the day?
That's a good question. So yeah, I actually got rid of the Mustang, not by choice. I crashed it. So before I was working at Chevrolet, but no, what happened was, basically I was over at Chevrolet and I enjoyed working on cars, but I had another car at the time and I stripped the interior and went to throw a roll cage in it.
Mhm.
And, I was like, man, this is some bad stuff thrown in a roll cage. Like, it just felt so cool. So
Mhm.
I was like, why would I not hone in on this? And, you look at that too, and then you look at what does a welder make, in the oil and gas field versus what does, my future look like at Chevrolet making whatever, 70, 80,000 a year. And, that was just another factor. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go this route. And that's really what led me there.
So what program did you take then? So, you started looking around trying to find something. What did you end up taking?
Yeah, so I got my level C through BCIT, and right away, right out of the gate, I know some people struggle with getting welding gigs. I was fortunate enough, I just walked into some guy's shop. He was looking for welders. He said, hey, Connor, we got a project going on. We're building this FedEx warehouse. I think it's the main distribution factory over in, Western Canada, because
Mhm.
it was huge, but they were severely behind their schedule. So when I went to him, I was like, yeah, are you guys hiring? And he said, yeah, when can you start? And I said, well, whenever. I just finished school. And he said, all right, you're starting tomorrow. So I went right into a gig 2 days after getting my ticket, welding 7 days a week, 12-hour days. And yeah, it was good fun and definitely a pay increase from working at Chevrolet, as you could imagine. So that was good. Yeah.
So that's pretty fortunate. And I think a lot of kids right now coming out of programs, I shouldn't say kids or people, because lots of people are retraining right now to get into welding. A lot of people that are coming out now, I find that there's quite a bit of work. Albeit that there is some requirements of certifications now. Like it's gotten a little trickier in today's welding world because there are tickets and qualifications that people expect. For
Yeah.
you walking into a new warehouse construction build, I'd imagine it's probably like you needed your base CWB all position, MIG and stick, maybe a flux core. I don't know, just structural stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I got my stick CWBs, and that was it. After that, I was smooth sailing, and I did that project. That was a 3-month project, and I went into ironworking following that with my stick welding experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't a huge fan. Just with the amount of rain that we get in Vancouver, I'd be, throwing some I-beams up and I'd just be getting
Yeah.
electrocuted. So I wanted to avoid that. So I got out of there a couple months in. But yeah, it was a good experience. And I definitely recommend, getting your CWBs for whatever position you can get them in if, you're new to welding. And it'll help you significantly with landing a career, right? So
Yeah,
makes
for
it easier
sure.
to start.
Well, some trades are very very CWB certification or qualifications dependent. Like you mentioned, the ironworkers. I worked with the ironworkers lots in my younger career, and
Yeah.
I always tell young people, like, if you're struggling looking for work, get your all position stick and go to the ironworkers. Like they'll throw you out there. You might not be welding all day. You may not weld at all for a few days, but it's work and it's really good paying work with really good pensions and benefits. And don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Work is work, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but it is a
Absolutely.
whole nother thing. A couple months ago, I did see an article, and I actually got a phone call about it being like, they always study the shock hazards of electricians so carefully. Like how many shocks they get. If an electrician gets a shock
Yeah.
on the site, they're off
Yeah.
work for like days. There's a whole like process of getting back
Yeah.
in there. And they're like, do welders ever get shocked on site? And I was like, dude, all the time. But no one seems to care about us
Yeah.
getting shocked. You know, electricians, oh no, take the day off. We're like with our hair standing up all day. But whatever, you know. I guess
Yeah,
I guess that's part of the
exactly.
job. So
Yeah,
so
totally.
let's keep going down the timeline. You tried out ironworking for a bit. You know, they say Vancouver only gets around 70 to 75 sunny days a year. That ain't a lot. So that's a lot of
No.
rain. Now,
No.
where'd you go to from there?
Yeah. So after that, I went into a shop where we were building storage racking. It was called RPAC, and it was a great place, and it was through a temp agency at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nice gig. It was 410s. The pay wasn't that great, as you could imagine, going from working in the field with ironworking, where you have lots of overtime,
Mm-hmm.
to a shop role where it's basically 40 hours a week, maybe an extra day of OT sort of thing. So that was a bit tough, but at the same time, I got a call from the temp agency asking, if I want to try another gig, and I enjoyed where I was at, so I told them no. But I told them, hey, I had a friend, he just got his C level. Can he join on? So he joined them, and then I called him. I said, how's it going over at this new place that I got you a job? And he's like, oh, it's going great. And I asked him how much he was making. He's making more than me. And I was like, man, I got this guy a job making more money than me. And I was like, what am I doing? So I elected to go. I said, hey, well, are they hiring? And, I went over and applied and, got the job. And that was over at a place. It's called Commercial Truck. And that's over in Delta. So, again, about 30 minutes from Richmond or
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver, and we were building commercial trucks. It was a super cool job. I was able to use my automotive experience, and we were able to build all these trucks. I was getting a little bit of electrical work, some hydraulics, some welding, and yeah, it was a pretty good time. I love that place. It's a good time.
So where are you in your apprenticeship as you're continuing this journey? You know, you got your level C, but you're working a few more places. You know, the years gone by now. Are you looking to go back and finish off blocks? Are you looking to go towards that JP?
So absolutely, I was definitely looking to get my red seal, and I was put into a funny position because I was put in charge of this big contract, as a lead hand, I guess. So I was managing, 10 other guys, and I had to be there, right, for the company to make sure that that contract went through. And, at the same time, I wanted to get my journeyman. I was like, well, how am I going to go back to school? So it was one of those things where I just told them, hey, I'm going to go back for my B level. And, if you can keep me on, great. If you can't, then I guess that's it, which
Mm-hmm.
is, I guess you could say a ballsy move when you're living almost paycheck to paycheck at that point in time,
Yeah.
right? So I went ahead with it, and sure enough, they needed me there, so I was able to go and take my B level while working there, which was basically Monday to Friday. I'd be working 6 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and then from 4 p.m. till usually about 9:30 p.m. I'd be in class doing my B level, and
Mm-hmm.
that was my routine for I can't even remember how long B level was, 3 months, 4 months, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was a good time.
And
I
how are
think
your
the only
skills going back to school? Were you still there?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. With the B level, the only thing that changed though is the TIG welding, right? So I got a little bit of TIG experience, not a whole lot. So it took me a little bit longer than the average person to go through that schooling. But
Mm-hmm.
when I came back, I was like, man, I love that. You're not catching on fire. You're not really getting electrocuted too often. Like this is the role that I want. So went and worked at this other shop. It's called Aggressive Tube Bending. They do a lot of work with Boilermakers. They do some stuff with the aircraft industry, and some military contracts. Some art installation. So I was building really cool stuff. I loved what I was doing, but
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, after a little while, I suffered from some nerve damage in my lower back. I had a ruptured disc in my L5 and L6, so that took me off work for about a year.
So was that from hockey? Was that from welding? Was it a shock of like an injury, or was it like a repetitive strain, like left lumbar 5-6? So that's kind of right in the middle of the curve there.
Yeah, so that's just repetitive lifting, for a
Mm-hmm.
tall, skinny guy. I guess that's pretty common from what I hear. But it's just one of those things where you're in a fab shop and you're picking pipes up from the
The
ground, you're
ground,
throwing them
yeah.
on a stand and welding them up, and you're trying to save time, so you're not using the overhead crane and stuff like that. And that's basically what got me there. But Max, as far as that goes, I don't think that it was a bad thing. I think I was very blessed to have that because it gave me the opportunity to reach out to friends that were welding inspectors and say, hey, how did you get into this? What was the deal? Right. So that led me into the next part of the career, which was nice.
So you get the year to work on your health and rehab your back. Did you have to get surgery, or did you manage to skirt it without surgery?
You know what? I got a cortisol injection. Have you ever had one before?
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
and
hurt.
and exactly. So,
Yeah.
man, I had to get three injections like right around the same area, and I kid you not, man, my by the third injection, like my nose started bleeding, and I was about to pass out,
Yeah.
and the doctor tells me, he says, "Okay, you're all finished up." And I was like, "You know what, man? Like, I appreciate what you did, but I hope I never see you again in my entire
Yeah.
life."
Yeah,
So,
I have had him for my neck because I blew out my neck and my shoulder, which is very common welder problem, is blown out left shoulder. I'm still going like for the rest of my life. I go to chiropractor. I was just booking it this afternoon for my left
yeah,
shoulder because it's flares up. But I mean, you learn to take care of it. You learn what to do, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, use the equipment, kids. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
the
absolutely. It was
cortisol
a bit
feels like fire going in. It's not fun. Like,
no, no, it's not too fun. I went there that once, and that was it. So
mhm.
that's as far as that goes.
So you're sitting, healing, not working, reevaluating your life because you're like, dang, I don't want to be hurt all the time. This isn't cool. And you said you started reaching out to inspector friends. Now, are these inspector people that you met through the trade, or people that you went to school with that kind of went down that route?
Yeah, so these were people that worked at shops with me previously.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good idea for any welder to keep in touch with, all those people in the welding trades, because you never know when a shop's gonna,
Networking is
go
everything,
slow.
you know.
Yeah, exactly, right? So reached out to him and he said, hey, just go and get your level one. And I went and got my level one inspector's ticket. And then when I went and joined them, they were just starting with the Trans Mountain pipeline there. So
Hmm.
went and hopped on that gig, and there's a ton of, as you could imagine, ton of certification needed and all that sort of stuff. So I was one of the only inspectors basically working there, and well, on this portion it was spread 7B, which is in Hope and Chilliwack area, and it was a good gig, working s- basically 712s, but it was now at this point a lot more slacked. It was
Desk work,
just
yeah,
taking on
documentation.
more, yeah, taking on more responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but yeah, it was a nice gig. And then at the same time, as getting my level one, I really had an interest in going into finance. So, I actually went ahead and started getting educated a bit before that in finance, but got my tickets that allowed me to provide financial products during that time period.
So what allured you to finance? That's you know, not to joke too much about welders, but if there's one thing welders aren't very good at is holding on to money. You know,
Yeah.
so like I mean, and I'm basically quoting my life as a welder,
Yeah.
you know. But you know,
Yeah.
for a young guy who's welding and now inspecting, you know, you have, for the most part, we get offered people to do our finances for us. You know, like most of our jobs have financial attachments to it to help us because we're notoriously bad at the money we make.
Yeah.
Um, so like I always told
Yeah.
people that, you know, I've told welding students since I started teaching 10-15 years ago, it's
Yeah.
like we're like professional sports athletes, welders. You know, we get paid a lot. Our work life might not be forever because you
Yeah.
know you don't see too many 60-year-old welders out there. It's kind of
No.
like a gig where you make a lot of cash and you try not to blow it.
Yeah.
You try not to let it slip through your fingers because you want to work yourself into a coaching gig someday, or an off the ice or an off the field gig.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
the dream sports career, right? You go play sports for 15 years, then you become a coach or an owner or whatever. I said welding's the same. Get out there, make your money, but work yourself towards a supervisor job or an inspector job or an owner job, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Absolutely. That's hilarious. It's definitely that route, right? Especially in oil and gas where you
Mm-hmm.
work at lots of hours. But yeah, what led me down that route? I mean, first of all, I would say almost anyone growing up in low income housing is thinking, how the hell do I get out of here and how do I make sure this doesn't happen for me and my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once I went into that environment where I was working 7 days a week, 12-hour days, I was making great money. I had no idea what to do with it. So I asked some of the other guys and I was like, what should I be doing? And, you get that advice from certain guys, at least back then, when cannabis was starting to be legal. Oh, buy this weed stock and, buy this Air Canada stock and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, well, okay, I'll try that out. And, it proved to be a bit interesting. But growing up around Vancouver, I was like, you know what? If I just put my money in real estate, I'm sure it's going to go up in value. So around the age of 20, I just started purchasing rental property. And, funnily enough, I had my mom who was willing to help me. She had been a property manager for about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, being like a true welder, being stubborn and not wanting any sort of advice or help, I was like, no, I got it sorted. I'm all good. I can take care of myself. And the first tenant happened to be an occasional crackhead who somehow forgot to pay rent on time, and I ended up losing about 12 to, I don't know if it was 12 or 15 grand in about 3 months. And then I was like, you know
You're like,
what?
okay,
I should
mom.
probably, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, well, I should learn how all this stuff sort of works, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I just took some courses. I had no plans of getting into finance at all. Like, I was very happy welding. I loved what I was doing. It was a great field to be in. Um, so I just took random courses and, took them through a local college, eventually transitioned over to McGill. If you were to ask me the name of what courses I took, couldn't even tell you. It's been a little while now. But yeah, at that point in time, it really helped me a lot seeking that financial literacy with getting a better understanding of what I could do with my money.
Well, and the rental game's a tricky game. I got some properties, and my wife's my property manager because I don't like doing that stuff. I'm the
Yeah.
fix-it guy. I'm the fix-it guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, something's broken, send me. I'll do that. But all that other
Yeah.
stuff, man, I don't even want to know. Like, someone else can take care of that.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so what kind of stuff did you get? Like you said, you were able to sell products. That sounds like what kind of education did you have to get, and what abilities were you able to do while you're out in the field, and offering what you call products.
Yeah, so as far as that goes, I was very, very lucky in this sense that my childhood best friend, who also grew up in low-income housing, had gotten into finance. And so after going through schooling for finance, the struggle that I found was that I'd meet all these people that, could benefit from maybe changing certain things in their portfolio or, getting cheaper insurance, whatever it was. And I'd recommend it to them, but I couldn't ensure that that actually took place, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I found was that, okay, I'll recommend this to you, but hey, it's not happening for whatever reason. So I needed to actually be able to help them make sure it happened. So I asked him, I said, what licenses do I need? And he said, you actually only need two licenses. You need one's called the CIFC. It's a Canadian Investment Funds course. Teaches you all
Mm-hmm.
about investments in Canada. Allows you to sell mutual funds if you ever chose to, or
Mm-hmm.
manage your own. The other one is an LLQP, Life License Qualification Program, that allows you to sell insurance-based products. Both courses honestly take around like 50 hours to complete. It's not a ton of time, which is surprising.
Uh-huh.
But those were the two licenses that I got. And from there, I was able to help people, with a lot of their financial problems.
Now, did you find that market is saturated? Because, like, I'll tell you, like, as a kid coming up in Canada through a variety of demographics, financially and culturally, there's a lot of people that turn to selling finance and insurance as
Mhm.
kind of a temp gig. There's a lot of people that kind of fall into what I would say is like the big insurance companies Ponzi scheme, where they bring in someone young, give them a little bit of training, give them a little bit of licensing, but really what they want is all that young person's contacts. They just want to be able to grab everybody out of your contact list, and
Yeah.
then they don't care about you no more. And I've had
Totally.
lots of friends over the years fall for that and be like, oh, I'm an insurance guy now, or I'm selling stocks now. And it's like, are you really, or are you just working for a company that's flipping you a little bit of coin so that you can give up your contact list? How did you
Yeah,
compete with that?
totally. So I think, whatever career, whatever field you go in, your success ultimately is usually defined by the people who are realistically giving you advice or giving you a game plan to follow, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
So for myself, with my childhood best friend, like I was just fortunate. Like I said, he happened to be someone who was making $500,000 a year profit, right? So obviously he's able to give me a more solid blueprint in terms of, how you go out and find clients and things like that. But definitely that was one of my concerns, right? So I started actually on a part-time basis in finance. And, once I was able to match or get close to the income I was making as an inspector, then I was able to make this transition over to full time in finance.
So were you doing both jobs for a while there?
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing inspecting, and I was also doing a bit of advising on the side. But that was definitely a difficult time in life. Maybe helping a person or two every month or so, right? But just family and friends. And definitely, man, there is a lot of that going on where those insurance companies will go ahead and try to, get all those contacts from you. I mean, if you look at recruiter positions for those insurance companies, they pay, around 200 grand a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
obviously they're doing what they can to, no other way to really put it, but bleed you dry of those contacts, really.
Well, and I think that's how they make their living. Like, I mean, it's an old game, right? It's been around
Yeah.
for as long as money's been around, really. Like,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But you know what? With that said, as far as that goes, I think that still in Canada today, there's a lot of people that could benefit from gaining access to financial literacy, right?
mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's like it's crazy the amount of people living paycheck to paycheck nowadays. It's just astounding, right? So to be able to give back to people that were in a position that I was in is really emotionally rewarding, honestly.
Well, it's interesting conversation. I hear it sometimes from a very ignorant standpoint, where it's like the schools aren't teaching our kids to be financially literate. The schools aren't teaching our kids about finances or taxes or saving or their budgets. And it's like, what's wrong with the school system? It's like, okay, well, first of all, check yourself. The schools never taught that. Like,
Yeah.
that's not something that ever existed. The difference is that 100 years ago, 20 years ago, there was a lot more disposable income at every level for most of society. So you would learn your financial literacy from your parents. So I always say, like, rich kids know how to save, right? Because rich kids are taught to save from when they're little. Like, rich
Yeah.
kids grow up with a bank account. Rich kids grow up with their parents telling them about, we're going to save up money and we're going to go to Disneyland this summer, or we're going to
Yeah.
save up money and mom got a brand new car. But
Yeah.
poor kids, we didn't get any of that. There was no
No.
saving. There's no discussions about banks. There's no talks about RRSPs in our houses. It's
Yeah.
always like, oh, the price of milk and oh, the price of bread and oh, the price of gas, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a constant struggle. So for people to talk about financial literacy not happening at home, it's because the homes don't have the finances to do it.
Yeah.
It really, and what I like, I mean, and there are free courses offered across Canada for financial literacy. Many
Yeah.
universities and colleges offer them. And I've taken them. I ended up going back to school for some finance stuff myself because
That's awesome.
after tanking a couple businesses, I realized I don't know how to run a business.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go to school. And the things I learned were invaluable. And like you said, I think everyone should learn these things.
Absolutely, right? Because it just gives you a better understanding of what's happening, like with your money. Even if you don't want to manage your money, if you think your time could be better spent with your family or working more hours, whatever it is, that's great. That's fantastic. But if you're not someone who, has full trust in what your advisor is doing, then having a better understanding of what they're actually doing with your finances is going to be, so rewarding, and it's going to really help you emotionally. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of people that lose sleep over their finances realistically, right? So
Yeah. No, it's true. It's
and
true. Well, let's take a break now for our advertisers and sponsors and the people that pay our bills. And and then when we get back, we'll kind of start from where you are now in this new part of your life. And I got some questions about the previous part of your life too, but we'll be right back on the CWB Association podcast with Connor McWilliams here, and don't go anywhere.
The CWB Association is new and improved and focused on you. We offer a free membership with lots of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. We are committed to educating, informing, and connecting our workforce. Gain access to your free digital publication of the Weld magazine, free online training, conferences, and lots of giveaways. Reach out to your local CWB Association chapter today to connect with other welding professionals and share welding as a trade in your community. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Join today and learn more at cwbassociation.org.
And we are back here on the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and I'm here with Connor McWilliams, coming to us from Vancouver. We're talking about his career. He started as an auto body technician, then welder, then inspector, now finance guru. And that's quite the turn. We've cracked jokes, but in all reality, finance is something that people in the trades often get stung by. It's the joke. It was the joke out. Like out in the West, we have such a bust and boom economy that everyone's always like, "Oh yeah, look at my brand new truck," and then 3 weeks later, "Oh, no truck." And then a year later, "Look at my new truck," and then 6 weeks later, "No truck." It's like the auctions are always busy out here. But that is something that I think we need to really learn, right? So. Let's talk about you. You start getting into finances, and did you want to connect the two? Did you want to connect the trades to your financial goals? Did you see the people in the trades persons, trades companies as a potential source of clients?
So as far as that goes, what it started with was, when I started doing somewhat well for myself financially, I had family and friends reach out saying, "Hey, how can I, rework my finances? What can I do here to improve things for myself?" Right. So I started helping just family and friends realistically. And that was when I was, becoming a welding inspector at that point. And I just loved the emotional impact that it had on the people around me. Right. Because there's so many times where I help people and I just thought, man, if my parents just knew about even half the stuff that I know today, as a child, I probably would not have had to deal with, certain situations that I had to deal with growing up. So from there, it made a significant impact on myself in terms of helping my community. To be totally honest with you, myself, like my best friend, he recommended how to build my business. He recommended helping small business owners. So that's actually what I went for, was helping small business owners. Now, what I thought about to myself was I'm helping all these people who are most of the time doing, anywhere from 4 to 8 million a year of revenue, but it's not as emotionally rewarding realistically. So that's actually what led me to start wanting to educate a lot of welders, right? Was, hey, I was in that situation where I had no idea what the hell to do with my money. And when I was at these shops, I had the HR guy sit down and he'd say, "Do you want to do medium or high risk?" And I'd say, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Right. So, that's what kind of led me down that route. And I was like, you know what, there's so many welders that could benefit from expanding their own level of knowledge when it comes to finances. And it would make such a big impact because honestly speaking, a lot of the guys in the trades are making good money. There's no reason why they can't retire early. It's just that they're not shown how to do so. Right. And like you said, unless you're coming from a rich family, which truth be told, most welders, at least the ones that I met, weren't, right? You're just not going to get that sort of dialogue that you would get, growing up with those types of parents. So that's kind of how that went.
Well, I got an interesting little story in my life that showed me both sides of the coin. My dad won not a huge amount, but a decent amount of money in the lottery when I was like, I think 9 or 10. So we went from like, a very different part of the city to a very nice part of the city. Yeah. And I started a new school over the summer, and I was in this, brand new school with really good computers and a really nice library and digital clocks. And it was like not at all where I had come from as a kid. And everyone around me was already talking about, like, I got $500 in my savings account, or grandma gave me $100 for Christmas. And it was a whole different world where it seemed like everyone had expendable income, even as children. Even as children, I'm cleaning the whole house and mowing the lawn for $1 so that I can go buy a Slurpee on Friday. And little Jimmy at the school, his parents are lawyers, and he's got $100 crisp $100 bill at Circle K, and I'm just like, what is happening in this world? But that kind of was good for me, because it taught me that there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot about this money, and it put a fire in me young that I want to not have to worry about these things anymore. I don't want to ever have to worry about, the price of milk. Screw it. I'm just going to, I just want to, if I want milk, I'm buying milk. I don't care if it's $2 or $6. I'm getting the milk, which, years later, I asked a mentor of mine, how do you know when you're happy, like financially? Because it's a never ending game. It's a rat race, right? Like you can run forever. So when Absolutely. Are you happy? Like what is your measure of happy for making enough money? Because some people I know are very happy at $70,000 a year. Like they are, content. And then I know people that make 250 grand a year and they're still chasing the tail, right? And this guy says to me, you've made it when you don't care about the price of gas or the price of groceries. When you just go to the gas station and you don't pick one because it's a cent cheaper, and you don't pick a grocery store because they got a sale. You go to that one because it's got the best meat, and you go to that one because it's got the nicest car wash. And I was like, that's a really interesting way. But what he was trying to say is that it's about your personal choice. What are the personal things in your life that you consider necessary? And if you have them, you're good. If you're not, then you're not, right?
Totally. Absolutely. I think that's a great question to have. And, it's funny you asking that, because I always ask others, what's your definition of financial freedom? But I've never had someone ask it to me. So, but, as far as that goes, with that question, I've had many points in my life where, I, like I said, grew up no money, had months where, making, as you can imagine, like a pretty large, substantial amount of money, what someone might make in a year, just in a month. But what I found was that once you reach the point, at least in my experience, of making around $10,000 a month, you can most likely cover your expenses, cover the expenses of your family, not really worry too much about, like you said, getting gas, or, where you're going for food or things like that. But anything past that, what I've found is that your lifestyle doesn't really change all that much. It's, it's just a nicer restaurant. It's just nicer clothes. It's a nicer house you live in. It's a nicer car. So, once I was able to attain that $10,000 a month mark, after tax, that is, I was, pretty happy with the way things were going. And, but, then again, financial, independence, or your financial goals is different to everyone. But I think in today's day and age, with how everything's going, I mean, in a recent survey they did, 86% of Canadians say inflation is the biggest issue in Canada right now, right? 46% say they're doing worse than what they anticipated doing this year. I mean, gas prices up 5.6% last year, right? Food prices 22.5% last 4 years, right? It's becoming crazy to be able to afford things. Most people's pay is not matching inflation, honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember when I was coming up, yearly raises were based on a minimum of inflation. That was like an industry standard. If inflation was 3%, you'd get a minimum 3% raise plus whatever bonus for your good behavior or good work. And then somewhere along the line that got dropped, and it was like, why would we stop keeping up with inflation? That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's so interesting to see. I agree completely, right? And with that said, with the issue, I mean, in the last 6 years, with certain people in positions of power, it's definitely been a lot more challenging for most Canadians. For example, Canada Pension Plan, which is what most people pay into, what most people rely on. I don't know if they know this or not, but the amount that you're paying into it has actually increased, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
gone up. It used to be 4.95% of your paycheck annually, and it had been that way for about 30 years. In 2018, it started increasing year over year. It's now 5.95%, and it's crazy to expect that to cover, the expenses for Canadians who are retired, because as far as that goes, what's the most amount of money you can earn from that? About $1,280 a month max is
Yeah,
CPP, right? It's sad, and I really wish that there's a lot more education around the topic. But I mean, hey, that's why I'm here, and that's what
yeah.
I'm trying to do,
Both my
right?
parents are retired. My dad was a boilermaker his entire life,
Yeah.
and he hated financially how he retired. Like it didn't go at all like it was supposed to be. He put all his money into RSPs in the 80s and 90s because every person in Canada was told to put all their money into RSPs for like 30 years. And then 2008 happened, then 2016 happened, then 2019 happened, and everyone's RSPs were worth nothing.
Yeah.
So I remember him telling me after he retired, he's like, "Don't believe anyone." Like he's like, "I would have been better off putting this money in a sock drawer." Like really, like if I would have put the same amount of money into a bag, it would have been better off. And I was like, "Oh, I hate hearing that, Dad." Like
Absolutely, man, and it's just realistically, I think a lot of people are exploited due to a lack of financial literacy. An example of
Mhm.
this would be, my dad, for example, he was provided a permanent insurance product at a young age, around 22 years old. And, he canceled it after a couple of years. And he told me, oh, I lost all this money with this insurance product. You'll never get insurance. You're going to lose money. And now that I'm in the industry, I said, well, Dad, the reason why you lost money was because you pulled out, you had this charge that's there the first 10 years. If you had kept contributing, here's how much money you would have now. And that's what that looked like. And he said, well, no one told me this when I canceled them. And, so it's kind of one of those things where I just wish that more people were being educated on this sort of stuff. And, to go back to your point of RSPs, so many people think that RSPs, because the name literally says registered retirement savings plan, that's what you use for retirement. For any person that thinks logically, that makes sense. But
Mhm.
it actually negatively impacts the amount of money that you receive from OAS and GIS when it comes time to retire, because they base the amount that they're willing to pay you in benefits on how much taxable income you receive. So if you're getting benefits from RSPs or pensions, then it's actually going to hinder the amount of money the government's willing to give you in retirement. Whereas if someone had gone with something like a TFSA, for example, you could be making, tons of money for a TFSA on a monthly basis, and it would have no impact on those benefits the government are willing to pay. And, as welders, most people are making a great income, and it sucks to see that happen because those people have paid those taxes for
Mhm.
things like OAS and GIS. I mean, welders, most of you realistically built the country. Almost everything nowadays, home, whatever it is, had an involvement of a welder. And
Mhm.
it's sad that those same people are then not taken care of, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I mean, I went into property too. Like everyone always said, like at the end of the day, nothing is more valuable than land. So I've taken that to heart, and that's kind of where I've started looking. And I have I have a philosophical distrust of money. I think
Yeah.
that currency within itself
Yeah.
is is the last step and the weakest point of any transaction. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's easy come, easy go. As simple as the saying says, you gotta be careful. And like, I mean, I have a financial guy here in Regina.
Yeah.
He deals with my stuff, but every year we do our review, and he's always like, what's your goal? What's
Yeah.
the per month you want to get when you retire? And I'm like, zero. I just want to have no debt. I'll take care of the rest myself.
Yeah.
Like I'll put away what I need to put away, and I'll have my things in order, what I need. But all I want on the day I retire is a lump sum for me to put bows on the things that I have going on, and that's it. I'll never see you again. Have a nice life. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he thinks I'm crazy, but hey, I feel like if I tell someone I want a monthly, something will happen and it won't happen. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just don't believe it. Or I'll be that guy that's like, yeah, I retired and die in 2 months or whatever, something stupid. Like, no, forget it. Just big lump sum. That's all I want. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're probably thinking this
Exactly.
guy's dumb, but
Yeah. No, not at all. Not at all. And to be totally honest with you, Mark, even myself, you experienced that with your parents, with your dad's saying, RSPs aren't the greatest and all that sort of stuff. Myself too, we had a similar experience in my family. My mom, she had a car crash and wasn't working for 5 years, so she got 5 years of salary all at once. It was like a $250,000 settlement. And
Mhm.
for people that don't have financial literacy, that's very large. I mean, even people that do, that's a large amount
Very
of money.
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. And we went and talked to the bank, and I won't say which bank, but we qualified for private banking, which is, if you have a certain amount of assets that you hold, you qualify for private level banking, which is where they can provide you, ETFs, individual stocks, all different investment products that are, doing usually a lot better than what you receive at a branch level. But the products that she was put in were bringing about like 1.5% per year, right? And
It was like
it's
less
like,
than a
well,
checking account.
yeah, really. And I was like, this is, at private level banking. It was mind blowing. So that
Yeah.
definitely motivated me to go and do that. And I hope that more people do what it is that you did, and went and sought that advice. And as far as getting debt free, totally, that's a big thing, right? There's so many Canadians nowadays. I mean, 40% in a recent survey they did from the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, about 40% of Canadians are worried about their debt, right? Which is a
Mhm.
huge percentage of the population, genuinely.
Well, and then it's a big risk for welders, especially young welders. You're going to come out of welding school first year, you're going to make 50, 60K, then you're going to start climbing. Banks are going to notice, and then you're going to start getting those letters. And I remember being in my early 20s, and I would just literally get credit cards in the mail with $10,000, $15,000 limits ready to go. And that's extremely tempting.
Yeah.
Like you go to Canadian Tire. Oh, all of a sudden I have a Canadian Tire credit card, and then I got a WestJet credit card, and then
Yeah.
I got a Costco credit card. And then it was like, okay, like relax. I remember being in my mid-20s, coming up on 30, and I had a stack of credit cards, and I didn't apply for a single one. You know what I
Wow.
mean? Like they would just show up in the mail. And that's really dangerous for a young person that's, new to making money. And especially like you're going to have a family, you're going to buy a house, and then you're going to have a stack of credit cards on your back. Like I haven't been able to get my credit score over 700 like in 20 years, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of things that affect credit score, and it's funny that we deal with these issues because if you go and travel
hmm
to other countries, like for example, in Iran, I mean, they're not an example in any way for a lot of things, but when it comes to finances, like if you're in debt, you go to jail. Like that's it, right? So not
not allowed.
not a lot of people in debt over there, right?
Yeah.
I personally believe that, Canadians, well, North America as a whole is really taught to buy. It's a consumer-based
Yeah.
society, right? Rather,
Capitalism is based on debt, a large part of it, right?
totally, totally, right? Like, with banks, for example, with the money that they print. I mean, for those that don't know, whenever you do deposit, let's say $10 into a bank, they're actually taking $9 from that and they're giving it to someone else. They're lending it out, right? So
hmm
they're basically printing money based on what you put in. So it's very crazy. And you mentioned, the impact of other currencies. I mean, for myself, with my Airbnb business, it's based out of the US, so I get paid in US dollars. And whenever I'm looking at things here and I have my earnings from my Canadian business, I go, what the heck? I can't really afford much in terms of
hmm
USD, right? It's crazy. You go to anywhere, well, not anywhere, but most places in the US, like for example Dallas, where I have some Airbnbs, and the things that we purchase, restaurants, whatever, gas, it's around the same price. It's just that now it's in US dollars. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just took
Well,
like a
I
huge pay
remember
cut.
being able to go to the US and spend lots of money down there, and it was like a viable place. Now I find the US to be, if not more expensive, the same as here. I'm not getting any deals down there no more. And
Yeah.
housing, yeah, you can still find some nuggets in the US that are neat, but it's been pretty picked over at this point. And I mean, I'm starting to invest back home in South America because it's like finding the next markets, right? Like
Yep.
it's like where can I go to look for, I guess, those, I don't know what I'm like, no, I don't want to say backdoor deals, but like you want to get a one up, you want to find the next great thing before somebody else finds it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. And so many people are trying to do that. I wish that the government would have a larger role in making it easier for people in terms of real estate, for example, to get a permit just to build a property in Vancouver. It's about 50,000 for that same permit. In Texas, it's about $500, right? So there's
Yeah.
so many of these factors that come into play when you're looking at, the state of the Canadian economy. And I think a lot of people, with raising taxes like they did with capital gains, they just rose it up, to 66% or 66.67. Whereas before it was 50% is they expect to take all this money from people who are wealthy when realistically they're just moving it to other countries. And I think it's pretty sad to see, honestly, right? So
It's a tricky balance because rich people in Canada also are notorious for spending their money in other countries. So
yeah,
it's like, can you trust rich people, the rich,
yeah,
to actually invest in your own country? That's a big question because I've worked for many millionaires, even billionaires in my career because as rich as welders are, the companies we work for are way richer,
yeah, they're doing
right?
pretty good.
And none of them live in Canada. Even if it's a Canadian company, they're filtering all their money to Phoenix or the Bahamas or somewhere else. So when I see those tax gains, those tax increases, I do get the other side of it being like, look, rich guy, I can't trust you to put that money back into your own economy. So I'm going to have to take it because otherwise you're just spending it somewhere else. Now, if all rich Canadians would just spend their money in Canada, invest in Canadian business, invest in Canadian housing, man, it would be so much better. But I don't know. We're free market capitalism. We can't tell people where to spend their money. Right? We
Absolutely.
can't, right?
Yeah. We can't tell people where to spend their money. We can hope that they spend it here. But that's it's a very interesting topic. I think that
Mm-hmm.
as far as that goes, it's very crazy. And I think it boils down to, at least from the people that I know, like the clients I have who are doing very well financially, is a lot of them just don't feel right with what's happening with their tax dollars. For example, for every dollar you spend in taxes, 20 cents of it is going towards interest just on debt for a government, right?
Yeah.
It's
And I think we
concerning.
have the lowest debt ratio out of the G8. So, the other seven of the G8 are in worse positions debt wise. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And who do these countries owe the money to? Like, okay. So, the U.S. owes like more money than the rest of the world combined. They're the most
Yeah.
indebted country in the universe, right?
Yeah.
So the United States owes like what, $38 quadrillion, whatever it is. To who? To who? Like to Mars? Do we owe it to the sun? Like, how do you owe that to yourself? If anything, you owe it to the people. Give it back to them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I don't understand how we build debt against ourselves as a country. Like, I guess it's probably a more theoretical question, but I just find it so funny when it's like, oh, like I'm from South America, so like Argentina is just going through a terrible political revolt right now, and
Yep.
their inflation rate was at 187% this last year, right? And people
Yeah.
in Canada are like, freaking out over 6%, and we're all like losing our hair, going gray over 6%.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the U.S. is sitting at like 7. Argentina's at 187, and
Yeah.
even Canada in the 80s was at 20%. So
Yeah.
for statistically, we're in the glory years, but realistically, we don't feel like it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, what's the disconnect between all these different systems, right?
What's going on? What's the best route?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a very interesting concept for sure. And I think there could be lots of changes made to make things better. I mean, not only Canada, obviously in all these countries,
Hmm.
a lot of lobbying and things like that. But I think, to really boil it down, it just comes down to getting educated when it comes to your
Right.
finances. What are you doing with your paycheck? It starts early. Put away 10-15% of your paycheck. Start learning that when you're young, get that financial discipline so that when
Hmm.
you are a rig welder, you're not buying all those lifted trucks and ski sleds and stuff like that, right? So
But I love my Mustang. Don't tell me
yeah.
what to do.
Yeah, that's you gotta find the fine line, right? That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so like
absolutely.
for yourself now, what do you see like in the future? You've had a couple career changes, but you're still a young guy. Like what do you see yourself as, you know, do you see yourself expanding your business in your financial world, setting up a firm? Are you looking at, you know, being an entrepreneur yourself? What is it that's on your end list?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I have my own corporation. So I have contracts with around 75 different institutions to provide financial services in Canada. I would like to do the same in the US. Realistically, where I plan to earn my income from is from my Airbnb based business. It is operating in the US, and I just plan to expand in the US through that business, you know, using things like debt and all those sorts of tools to help myself out in that regard. But
Mm,
I really love the campaign that I'm currently doing to, you know, help welders. That's what I do with a lot of my spare time. At this point in time, the Airbnb stuff is mostly passive, you know, maybe 3 or 4 hours
yeah.
a month of work, something like that. But it's very passive. So rather than just sitting at home and, you know, dwindling with my thumbs and, you know, just looking at walls and whatever, being bored, I would rather, you know, do something where it feels like I'm helping out. So it would be great to be able to do the same thing in the US and, you know, kind of tackle it that route. As far as my goal and my mission, I mean, my mission right now is to educate people at no cost, and I would love to just see that expand in terms of a number. I don't really have a number in mind that I would like
Hmm.
to help. I just I just want to see everyone get help. I don't know if you've seen those, Max, but they did studies about you know, if you want to become a doctor, what your financial outlook looks like versus going the trades. And I'll tell you what, man, like if people do it right, the trades is 110% the way to go, right?
Yeah,
I have
I've one of my best friends is a chiropractor, and I've out earned him most of my career. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Exactly, right? And people think it's all amazing when you're, you know, especially as a business owner. And, you know, I have a client right now in Vancouver, and his company does about 1.5 million. He owns a chiropractor business, but about 85% of that just goes in expenses, right? So I don't think
Hmm.
it's as great as these people assume it is being a business owner in that regard, right? There's so many headaches that come alongside it. Even, you know, when you do become a doctor, I mean, most doctors are making around 250,000 a year,
Hmm.
but they they get to graduate with $500,000 of debt, right? It's
Or more.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No,
yeah.
so from your point of view, I guess, like, there's a couple things. Number one, how do people find you? Like, how do people reach out to you if they're listening to the podcast? They're young or old welder, doesn't matter. You're somewhere in the trades journey and you'd like some financial literacy, some education. You know, how do they find it? How do they reach out to you?
Absolutely. So advertising in Canada has proved to be a lot more expensive than it is in the US. Um, there's also a lot more rules and regulations around that with finance as a whole. So my mission wasn't really to make it this huge advertising campaign. It's more so word of mouth marketing that I like to do. If
Hmm.
people want to get a hold of me, they can reach out to me through LinkedIn. My name is Connor McWilliams. They can shoot me a phone call. You know, my phone number is 778-887-1455, or shoot me an email. You know, Connor Connor McWill MCWIL at gmail.com, and I'd be more than happy to help them out.
Cool, cool. And then in terms of, you know, your mission of education, are you going to be doing like a tour? Do you want to get on like some shows? Do you want to get on a stage? Like, you know, do you want to be kind of a hype person for financial literacy of the trades?
Yeah, that's a great thought. And honestly speaking, I was talking to another friend of mine. He's coming from plumbing background, and he's thinking of kind of doing the same thing. He's in
Hmm.
finance. He's done well in real estate, and you know we're thinking of kind of getting together and just like you said, you know, maybe going to all these shops and sharing the mission. Because I think what happens is a lot as welders is well, there's definitely a different way of talking when you're a welder versus when you're talking to your you know, banker. So I
Yeah, they
think
are absolutely.
I think being able to talk to those people is a blessing in disguise. And really coming from that background, I understand how tough it is. Where you know one day you're told, "Hey, there's going to be you know 5 months of steady work. We're all good to go," and the next week you're getting laid off, and you're like, "What the is going on?" Right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, definitely providing more access to that community is our goal. And at some point, yes, I would like to go all across Canada and provide these services and reach out to shops and all that sort of stuff. Absolutely.
Well, you brought up something there that's really interesting, which is something that we discuss on this podcast all the time from a number of different angles. It's the language, the way people communicate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Saskatchewan. We have banks, we have grocery stores, we have things, a whole economy in Saskatchewan built around agriculture. We have commercials on TV being like, if you're in agriculture, come to this bank because we speak agriculture. Shop at these stores because we support agriculture. We support the farmers, right? Which is a very smart way to do it because farmers have a certain way of talking and being, and they want to be comfortable when they go to the bank. They want to be comfortable going to the grocery store. These are their people. They can be themselves. They don't have to pretend to put on a suit and be weird or whatever. They can just be farmers.
Absolutely.
But people don't talk about that, about the trades. What bank do trades people, you got a guy who works or a girl that works 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for months on end. They get maybe a couple days off every few months to go hang out with their family and their kids. And they got to take a 1-hour trip out of that short time off to go to the bank and talk finances. And you know what? It's not comfortable. You don't feel good about it. You don't feel like you know what you're talking about. You don't feel like you're even welcome there because everyone around you is all clean cut and squeaky clean and all businessy. And you're in your burnt up hoodie with your work boots on and your ripped jeans. And they look at you like you're kind of like, oh, what are you doing here? Meanwhile, you probably make more money than every person in that bank. I remember feeling frustrated about that all the time. People look down on me. Oh, he's tattoos. He's got piercings. He's got long hair. Look at this grubby guy. It's like, yo, I make more money than literally everyone in this building, right? So that language is a barrier, right? It's a barrier because tradespeople sometimes don't feel welcome in these establishments of finance.
Totally, absolutely. And even for myself, you walk into the bank and you get this huge, like 40 pages of paperwork, and you're like, what the hell am I looking at? I'm just gonna sign it, right? And you have no idea what you're signing up for. And a lot of that comes from, being made to feel like you just said, like you're almost an alien walking to a place where you're not welcome, right? So creating that environment, where, hey man, I came from the same background. I totally understand how it is in the trades, right? It just makes people a lot more comfortable. And, as far as getting access, I do everything through Zoom, right? I mean, I do have an office in Vancouver, but I like to go there once a week, try not to drive in downtown, all those one ways and traffic and all that.
Oh,
good
I
stuff.
know.
Yeah. And so I'll run meetings through Zoom, and, it's I don't have any sort of set schedule. Like I said at the start, I just work those blue collar hours in a white collar job. So, usually doing 7/12s, but I mean, doesn't get too tough. I mean, the toughest part of my day is adjusting the air conditioning, right? So that's about it.
Yeah. And we've already gone over an hour, but I actually want to touch on that point too, because we talked about that before we started recording the show. And I think it's a neat thing to discuss because it's something that a lot of blue collar people think about and are kind of scared to do. But for you, was it a hard transition going from a blue collar lifestyle to a white collar lifestyle? Because I have my views on that too, so like I'd like to hear yours.
Totally. I think the biggest thing is almost like an identity crisis that happens right at first, where you go, man, I never did well in school. I went into welding, at least for most welders, right? Or I just got my tickets and I don't know how I could do this. And I would say the best way to make that shift is reach out to people who are leading lives that you would want to replicate, right? With myself, that's exactly what I did. I asked someone who was living a life where there were certain areas where I wanted to duplicate, right? I said, hey man, how do I do all this? How do I get involved in this? I don't think it matters at all what you go into. You could be freaking selling pickles, and as long as you found a mentor that did well selling pickles, you could probably duplicate the same results, right? So I would say reach out to those people. A lot of them are a lot more willing to actually communicate with you than you think. Even like with my Airbnb stuff, man, to be totally honest, I had no idea how to get into the US for Airbnbs or any of this stuff. And there's this guy on Instagram, and I just shot him a message, and he makes, like $2 million a month. I was like, hey man, how do I do this? I'd like to do it. That was it, right? Now he helps me and all that stuff. So I think that helps a ton, and that's why people get business coaches. But yeah, go into that, make that shift. Additionally, anywhere where you can start and you can earn money part-time, you get to control when you're working and you're able to match your income on a part-time basis and you're making full-time welding, then you can make that transition, right? That's a good time
Yeah.
to give it a shot. Obviously, if you have savings, right? But yeah.
Well, there's a couple pieces there that I want to contribute from my end. Number one, in Canada, there's a free federal program called the Futurepreneur Program. If you're a young entrepreneur in Canada looking to switch careers or start up a business, there's a government grant, and part of the grant comes with a mentorship matching where you get to actually, if you don't have one, they'll find one for you. I'm registered in there, so I have been matched with young welders looking to go into entrepreneurship because I've started companies. I've been a part of lots of startups, and
Yep.
now I'm a sort of pretty good where I am, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I do like to mentor, and like you said, mentorship is huge in in community, whether it's blue collar or white collar. And then the other piece I would say to people that are in blue collar looking to move into white collar is don't take your foot off the gas, because blue collar moves fast. Blue collar is results orientated. Blue collar is about meeting deadlines. Blue collar is about these parts got to go out the door because people need them, and that's that. When you get into white collar world, it's a lot of BS and a lot of bureaucracy and red tape and people spinning their wheels and people having meetings for the sake of having meetings, and it's a whole lot of stuff that
Oh yeah.
you're going to be able to power through if you keep your blue collar mentality going into white collar. You're going to work circles around people, and you're going to do things faster, better, and on time, because that's what blue collars trained to do. We're trained to do that, at all, like get her done. And white collar is not like that typically. So you're going to have a bit of a fight when you get into white collar, because some people are not going to like that movement. Stick to your guns though. Keep your pedal to the metal. Keep the same attitude. Like myself, I still get up early every day. I don't have to because I have a white collar job. I can make my own hours, but I kept my schedule. This is a schedule that made me successful before. Why would I stop? Why would I change that? So what if the other people in my world only work 4 hours a day or 6 hours a day? Not me.
Yeah.
That's not my shtick, right?
Exactly.
So and then it's like, wow, how did you get all that done? It's like, well, because I got it done. Like, I mean, that's because that's what I do, right? Like, I mean, I like to be able to work circles around people. I always have, even in blue collar. I liked being, a good, fast, clean welder. Well, now I'm a good, fast, clean paper pusher.
Yeah.
Like it is what it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's so true, man. It's crazy when you just take that mentality that you're driven into. And even, with being a welding inspector, the same thing happens, right? I don't know if you're ever in that role, but I remember being a welding inspector, going from an environment where, you swipe into a job on this electronic clock and you punch in and then you punch out the second you're out, right? To be super time efficient and try to get the lowest amount of hours on it. And I went into welding inspecting, and I'd be doing, inspections in half the time it takes normally. And they'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I'm there, hustling, busting my like hopping under this crane or whatever. And they're like, just slow down, right? Just
Like,
slow
no.
down. I was like, what? How do I do that? Like, what's the deal, right? So yeah, it's definitely an interesting change. But I think, oddly enough, with being an advisor, it's funny that I would say this, but I don't think life is all about money. I think it's about becoming the best version of yourself. And I think if you're someone that wants to explore that side of yourself, go and try it out. Get yourself someone like yourself who helps other people who are welders go into those roles where, they can be self-employed or at least try it out. Just show them the path and reach out and ask for help. And through that, you'll just find a new, self-identity realistically. And I think that will stay with you longer than any, financial freedom would really have an impact, at least on your life.
Yeah, it's true. And don't fall for imposter syndrome, everyone. We all get it. I still get it. I'm almost 50 years old, and and there's still days that I wake up and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? I used to just burn rod for 8 hours a day. How did I go from burning rod to this? But don't let your own mind grenade you, right? Like, just push through, stay confident, right?
Totally. Totally. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the people that usually doubted you at the start are the people that usually come back to you and ask you for the most amount of help. That's what I
Yeah.
found, right? I get all those texts, Connor, what credit card do I get? Right. And it's like 3 years ago, you were telling me, like, who are you to become an advisor? Right. And so it's like, yeah, it's funny the way it goes.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Last piece of advice here for the people. What would be a first step? You listen to the podcast, you got a little bit of inspiration here to try to figure out your finances, whether it's you or not. What would be the first step someone should do just to start getting their head wrapped around this?
I think really great step, and this is something that my mentor suggests I did, was think about what sort of lifestyle you want to live, right? Think really in depth. What does it actually cost on a monthly basis? All that sort of stuff, and then work backwards. Okay, I know that I need to make X amount of dollars to make X dreams happen. Where can I find that source of income? Okay, so I can find that source of income through all these different routes. Who do I know in that field that's doing well? Okay, how can I connect with that person? Whether it's, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it is. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
different ways to connect with people nowadays. And I think that's really the greatest place to start, is figuring out, what sort of lifestyle you want, what sort of person you want to become, and what actual opportunity provides you the easiest route to go and achieve that.
I love that. And I'm going to throw it out there as well. I'd add to that. Don't forget to become a part of your local CWB Association chapter. We are all about networking all across Canada. We do have a chapter in BC, which I just made a note. You are going to become a member of now. Sorry, I'm voluntolding you right here on live air, so no one can say I didn't warn you.
Yeah.
But that is part of what the association investment is. We invest millions of dollars across Canada into just letting people connect. This podcast, this is an investment that we make in getting people like your story out there. And we have chapters in every province across Canada where we have like-minded individuals that support each other. That's all it is. Volunteers supporting each other, and they're funded by us here at headquarters. So, that's the type of people we want to get together, and I'm pulling you into the network, buddy. You may want to or not, but you're going to meet a lot of welders. So
that's part of what happens when you come on the podcast. Eh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it's in the hidden fine print there. It's like when I go to the bank, I never know what I'm actually getting. Right? All right.
Well,
we're
too
doing
bad.
it.
Yeah, we're doing it. It's
That's
going to be
awesome.
good for you.
I love it. There you go.
All right, man. Well, thanks. Any shout outs to anybody before we go?
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as shout outs go, I mean, there's, I like to, I don't know, I guess thank people that helped me get here. I think that there's a few really bright minds that really played a large role, even in my entrepreneur's days today. The owner of the shop at Aggressive Tube Bending, this guy named Yuri, he's a genius in my personal opinion. The guy, and he busts his ass. He's a shop owner. He's a great guy. And another guy who managed the welding inspecting company, as part of, his name's Steven. It's called Matech. They're a little company, but I always used to joke with him. I said, Steven, you should be curing cancer, not figuring out if there's cracks in cranes, because he's just the smartest guy I've ever come across, right? But yeah, it's a great network to be in, and I'm definitely looking forward to hopefully helping more people.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today, Connor.
Thank you so much, Max, and it was a pleasure meeting you.
Awesome. And for the people that have been following along, make sure you click on the site, come check out the podcast, look at it all. We'll be sharing his information on our social media and on our website. Become a member of the association so you can get in contact with these type of people through our network. And as always, keep commenting, downloading, and letting us know what you'd like to see on the podcast. We're always looking for great stories. So, it's the people and it's the community that make the podcast as successful as it is. And just like Connor, we're moving into the U.S. soon here too. So we're expanding, and we can't wait to bring in all of America together into this network. So stay tuned for the next episode.
We hope you enjoyed the show.